my whole essence is actually tied to LABAF, because I met two men who had a very, very important role in how my life took a detour, as it were, what I've become today, you know. And these two men are also the two men I believe were the fulcrum of the foundation of LABAF, and that is my very first boss, and since I started working, Mr. Tony Akiosho, who was I think at that point he was still with Chevron, and German and Nicolapo, who is like an elder brother to me, a mentor, and someone who actually taught me how to write.
Years back, that was 1999. You know, that was when we met. They tried to introduce him to come to their, and they usually do this kind of festival, Stampede, Lagos Book and Art Festivals, and so on, you know. So, me coming there to be part of it, it was a good experience for me. You know, a young, vibrant musician who is looking for a place to exploit his talent, you know. That was what really prompted me to be part of it initially. So when we started, since then, 2000, 2001, 2002, we usually do it at National Stadium, National Art Theatre, then later Muzon Kitchen. We usually take it all around. Sometimes they started it from Tony Akiosho's apartment then. That was way back in the 90s. So the experience was so huge, and to be honest with you, I used that platform to really establish myself.
In 2004, you know, I had been hearing about the Lagos Book and Arts Festival, but my friend and business partner at the time, Ayo Aribabu, introduced me to the, well, if you will, the two leading lights of LABAF.
We used to have the usual Cora stampedes, and even as a student, way back in Labafemi University, I'd always find a reason to come home. And it was not a conscious decision, it just happened. For people like us, for the kind of passion we have for the arts, there was no option about whether we were going to do it or not. It definitely was something we had to do, especially given the circumstances under which the festival had to hold then.
I was still a student of University of Lagos. At that time, a group of us in the university were organizing programs. We had a group called Pen Circle. That basically, a group of us students, you know, were doing things around literature. We were aspiring writers and all of that. And we got in contact with somebody like German and Nicolapo, who at the time was, I think, art editor of The Guardian. And from that, we got in contact, we became involved with Cora. And LABAF was the big event, annual event for Cora. So as students, we were already, you know, involved.
I thought they were crazy. In this Nigeria that I know, how would people want to gather people together to talk about books, to talk about literature, to talk about art and all of those things, you know? Then I met the two main men behind it, Tony Akiosho, German Nicolapo, and they became my big uncles. They became the people who I could run to anytime I wanted to do anything. And so it became a sort of guinea pig for Crown Troops experiments back then, because we started looking for a voice, we started looking for a new voice, a new way of telling our stories.
My first engagement with LABAF was as a student. I was then in final year in university, and I was president of the Writers Association on campus. And we wanted to do, we had an annual event which we we thought we could bring to LABAF, and we discussed with the organizers, and they said, sure, come, it's fine, just bring your event, no problem, you can bring it in. And we did. Of course, for us, the idea was that we couldn't pay for a venue, and we wanted to leverage off a big event that will give us a platform to do our thing, and we did get that platform. But beyond that, I just became a part of the festival.
About 13 odd years ago, I started to volunteer to help with the children of the Lagos Book and Art Festival, LABAF. And at that time, I had started running the Green Festival on its own. So Green Festival and the children's segment of LABAF were two separate entities. And then as I did that, I got more involved in the Lagos Book and Art Festival, LABAF, and I also helped in other events outside that of the children. It's been 13 almost wonderful years.
My contact with the LABAF team was far back as in 2011 when I came for an interview, and I was interviewed by digital and publisher Tony Akionsho, the Secretary General of Cora. And after a thorough scrutiny and all that, I was eventually selected as the program officer for the annual Book and Art Festival. And since then, 2011 till now, it should be about how many years? About 8 years there, but I have been consistently working with the festival.
Got to know about Lagos Book and Art Festival between 2014 and 2016. These were the days where, I was really keen on attending literary art events. For me, it was really mind-blowing, to have a lot of authors, a lot of, writers, in Lagos, having to come together in under one roof, in one space, and be together for like 3-4 days. And also you have performances and all of that. Then, I became like a church rat. So I'm always hanging around, the organizers of these events.
That age of Chimamanda's book release, Farafina, Sefiata, so everything was bustling in the literature scene then. So I probably attended and I think performed on stage. The first set of people I knew LABAF off were this. They were probably friends then. Ayo and Nike Fagbade, now Aribabu. So then in 2009 I started to work for Cora, Committee for Relevant Art. I used to say then that working for Mr. German and Mr. Twain is like having two wives.
And in my evolution as a writer, there have been people who have influenced my life, who have been part of my history, and perhaps when I begin to make the marks that I hope to make, I will remember them. And these people seem to have one thing in common. I look at these giants of literature, of arts and culture, and I look at them from far, hoping that one day I would be part of LABAF.
My association with the Lagos Book and Art Festival started with me joining Cora. Now that was a long time ago. I remember that was in the year 2003, and I'd gone there to the festival as a guest. What you get at the festival, the Lagos Book and Art Festival, is like a family gathering, where everybody is interested in, getting to know one another and supporting in whatever form they're able to, especially when it comes to mentoring, younger people.
First time I was fully involved in the festival as a performer. We presented plays here, It was interesting, book readings, discussions. It was a great opportunity, super platform for networking. And so the next year when I was offered to be director of performances, I jumped at it. It was an avenue for me to also express myself. I directed a couple of plays that came on. The Man Who Walked Away by Professor Niyo Shundari, and Elechi Amadi's Pepper Soup 2 was also on display.
8 years ago, Footprint was part of the LABAF experience at the National Museum. I remember vividly, we did a performance called Child Abuse, and it was a very huge platform for Footprints. Then we were like an emerging group, and it's a huge platform to give it to children to actually express their part of view. It's personally for me, it's a special platform where I find worthy every year to express the child view of what is going on in our society.
LABAF gave me the opportunity to have a voice in the spoken word industry in Nigeria. And it was a time that I never had a stage. And ever since then, I've had the encouragement and the motivation to do more lofty performance and write more poems.
So the first time I heard about LABAF, I don't even know who told me about it, but I was invited, and I know that I enjoyed walking through the book fair. So many books in one place. It was like my first time ever. So there's so many interesting books. Different bookshops were exhibiting. The people who brought like old books that you couldn't get in the market anymore. And, so I was so excited.
The Lagos Book and Art Festival is something that has, if you say it's 20 years, they have tried. They have, and I'm not using that in a light sense. Something that has gone through, that has taken grit, that has taken determination, that has taken passion in this part of the world, where the arts are not really that funded like you have. But you will know that for people to be dogged about such an event, it's more than just, it's not passing, so to speak. There must be more to it. And so the duo of Toyin Akiyosho and German and Nikolapo, of course surrounded by all the other teams of the Cora team, Community of Relevant Arts, I must say I'm very impressed.
I can see LABAF from now on being the voice for positive thinking, for positive planning, for positive thoughts and deeds in society, in the Nigerian society.
I have no doubt at all that LABAF, is really going to keep on being in the vanguard of literary and art activism. But beyond that, I foresee a future where folks like my friend Ayo, who is very much interested in all these robotics and stuff, where LABAF will even be optimized via technology. So I can imagine in the future you have hologram sessions, for example, where say very, very important writers or creatives can have interactive hologram sessions from their place, from their houses, wherever they are.
It's been a worthwhile experience because it's a beautiful thing to look back and then see that you have been part of this this cultural pillar, an event that sounds like a cultural pillar in the cultural scheme of the country. There could have been no better way to spend one's time. I'm proud of my passionate moments with LABAF and with Cora, and I still hope to be of greater relevance with the organization in the future.
Whether LABAF going into the future will continue to play a central role, it's a function of Cora and the team that run LABAF today actually taking a hard look at what they think the future of LABAF should be.
What I'm hoping is that within Cora and within LABAF, that other people and hopefully much younger people have emerged who can run with the idea and who can plug into it as absolutely as I did and can do that long term. And it doesn't mean that I can't return to LABAF because it's home, but hopefully there are newer energies and people who can extend the vision in different ways like I did too, because it was flexible enough to take on my own energy and add to it and put it out there. And I'm not the only one that collaborated while being a member of the organizing committee. It was just natural that whatever you do as an artist or as a cultural producer, you bring it to LABAF.
I have a lot of good memories from working with children at LABAF, children and young people. I'm always amazed at how it is young people are able to absorb things going on around them and talk about them. So when we have the conversations with the teenagers especially, it's we encourage them to feel like this is a safe space, go ahead and talk about these issues. Then there was this year we were talking about, I think LABAF holds at about the time when we have the 21 days activism against gender-based violence. And so we were discussing with the young people, and I was very intrigued to hear the boys tell us, oh, but it's not only boys that abuse girls. Girls also abuse or are violent towards boys. And they came out and spoke about different ways that they face violence from girls and how it is that because girls feel like the world sees all girls as vulnerable, so many girls take advantage of that. So even when they're not wronged, they cry foul and then boys get to suffer, Then at other times, you also find that there are young people who are learning because of things around them, because of conversations like that, that it is important to respect everybody's opinion, important to respect everybody's space, and it's not necessary to want to get back at another person just because, you can. And sometimes just listening to those children just amazes me. They're not really children, they know so much.
In a normal society where the people form the government and not the government forming the people, today LABAF should haven't attained that height unconsciously of becoming the conscience of culture in Nigeria. LABAF should be in bed in court with whoever is Minister for Culture or Tourism. LABAF should be what will I call it now? A knowledge hotbed for even people who are serving in various states governments across this country and acting as consultants on things that have to do with culture, art preservation, history, future. That's what I think in a society where things work, but unfortunately we are not there. But for me, that's what I think their biggest achievement has been.
Yes, they should build the generation nest. German should retire, Uncle Tony should retire, all of them should retire, and form the cabal of LABAF, so that they will train young sharps, to take over.
LABAF should try and focus on trying to improve the art sector more, go into it. I mean trying to put more into the art sector, especially if LABAF can try as much as possible to support, intellectually. We usually run away from spending money on all those kind of stuff because it consumes a lot of capital. So to support the art sector, because we know our government is not really encouraging at all. But I think since all these years, I mean, over 20 years now, they've been doing it. It's non-governmental and something, and we've been there doing our thing, and everything is still moving on. And I think we can still do more to support and also to encourage those people. I mean, the real talents, to discover them more.
I think the idea of beaming the searchlight on the polity of the nation, and you know, is quite relevant, because the democracy is nascent with so many experiences. With this, by bringing the political issues to the front burner, you know, we're able to engage and be part of the building process. You know, and don't forget that LABAF started in 1999, the year the country returned to democracy. So we are partners in progress.
Producing a festival yearly is not an easy task. You have to look for fund, you have to look for participants and all of that, you know, programming and all of that goes into it. And it's not something that is easy. LABAF has been struggling with this issue of fund, you know, in the last couple of years. And I actually think that the organization that actually produces LABAF, which is Cora itself, doesn't take money from, you know, from public funds. Like, they don't actually apply for funds and all of that, you know. This is because I've been part of, you know, the organizing team before, and we have done several editions of LABAF, you know, by going to, you know, friends and family and, you know, asking them to contribute and all of that. This is how they produce LABAF. It's not as if there is one big fund somewhere, you know, that is being used, or there is one national fund or state fund that they can apply to, which is really a big problem actually for all the cultural producers, you know, in the country, that we don't have any funds that we can actually apply to. And for me, I think it is really, really challenging to continue to produce, or to actually continue to engage people through these means. And, well, perhaps maybe after 20 years it can become a biannual festival. It's actually a kind of breeding ground for new cultural producers in the country, you know. Being part of LABAF has really helped me, you know, shaped my idea of actually organizing events and producing events and all of that. Today I call myself a cultural producer, not because I go to a school to study cultural production. You know, I didn't have a certificate in that, you know, but because, you know, I've been part of a lot of projects, series of projects, and LABAF is one strong project that if you really pay attention as a young person, you know, you pay attention, you know, you follow instructions, you know, and the directions, you know, during the time of the festival, you're going to learn a lot. And I think that that's the reason why LABAF continue to produce, you know, every year. And I think this can also be institutionalized. Art production is, you know, it's a profession that people need to really learn. It can be professionalized. It can also be said that, you know, you are coming into these projects, you know, to learn this. And then there's a follow-up, you know, which the organization that is actually taking care of LABAF can actually, you know, tap into.
Yeah, I think one of the major challenges being faced by the festival and the committee is probably funding. You know, if you have sufficient funding, there's so much that one can do. But I also think that there is a wide class of youths out there that are all trying to do something with themselves. And I know that the Lagos Book and Art Festival would ordinarily focus on children in secondary schools and primary schools, and maybe focus so much on the book part. But I'm hoping that maybe in the future they focus also on the art and craft part. And this is not to say that they don't already do that, but there's so much to do in that area that I feel that is still a is still, there's a lot that can still be explored, you know, with regards to arts. And I'm talking about getting young people that have created a lot of artistic things. And I'm not talking about just young children or children of some of the artists that come, you know. I'm talking about looking at universities. There's so many people creating little things. Encourage them to come and sell their wares, and maybe even encourage some of them to have small workshops for the primary school or secondary school students, and make it a bigger festival that would happen in maybe different venues rather than one, with regards to the market, the things that they're selling, you know, because there's a big market for crafts, but sometimes maybe the supply is not as much as the demand, you know. So yeah, I think Lagos Book and Art Festival, as much as it focuses a lot on the book part, should also consider focusing more on also at balance up with the art part.
To change in the next 10 years will be the people. And so the question is, are the people prepared for those intellectual engagements? Are we going to have a grooming of new intellectuals? So LABAF should also think about grooming new intellectuals within the African space, especially because of migration. You know, we used to have Jumoke around. We don't have Jumoke Verissimo around. We used to have so person around. We don't have that person anymore because the person is in Canada, the person is in, you know. So as much as we see those departures, we see voids in the intellectual space. And so LABAF has to do more than engage the book culture and do engagement on the social discourse on platforms. It needs to do mentorship programs and groom new intellectuals who would engage the future. That is the next 10 years for LABAF.
I think the festival is already doing well, you know, focusing on everybody. And by everybody, I mean there's a segment, you know, there's a segment of the program that is basically focused on children, you know, primary, secondary school children, and the rest. You have panelist discussions, you know, that features young people. You have the adult sessions, you have the Stampede, you have the Art House Forum, and the rest of it. So, you know, it's all encompassing, and, you know, the festival engages everybody, you know. So I think this could be built upon, basically, in terms of improving the program. There's always room for improvement, but so far, I think the festival has been good in catering for everybody, you know, and maybe a bit more of entertainment could do. Find a way of, or improve on, you know, the way of engaging maybe the popular artists, the popular musicians, so that you can also engage the upwardly mobile, you know, social young people out there, you know, because right now, I mean, we know in our current times, young people just want to party, they just want to go clubbing, they want, you know, stuff that's sensational, you know. So if we give them, for example, we have maybe a Davido.
LABAF is on the right track, opening up the Book and Arts Festival to other genres of performance, other literary works. First, last year we saw the comics, those who do animations, the creatives that do animations. They were heavily involved in the Lagos Book and Arts Festival. The fact that LABAF has turned its attention, its advocacy towards literary appreciation by young peoples, it tells you that LABAF already sees the future, and yes, a renewal that works for all of us. Yes, we look forward to this year's own with the young people on board. we are preaching to a younger generation, hoping that in another 10 years' time, those set of people will be preaching to another set of people who will go for another 10 years. That's the kind of festival we are looking at. Yes, special focus on children, and I say that is the future. That is the goal.
I think there should be much more collaboration with the electronic media. We want to see much more of LABAF running productions with the TV industry. Because what I feel is that people don't really know that such festival exists.
I say that if LABAF has sustained 20 years, or has endured or has grown 20 years, then of course the sky is still the limit. But importantly, injection of new blood, new ideas, new, what's the word? To create a new interest from another generation is very important in any institution. LABAF too has kind of become an institution, so to speak, whether you like it or not. If you're done 20 years, you're an institution. But again, you need to create the opportunities for new artists, younger writers, younger methodologies, so to speak, because there might just be that great idea from that young person that can revolutionize what you've been doing.
Eco Theatre Carnival started when Crown clocked 20, and to run a theatre company in Nigeria consistently for 20 years with all sense of modesty in this climb is no mean feat. So the festival started in celebration of that anniversary, and we thought, no, this has to continue because, of course, LABAF, for instance, celebrates books and writers, literature, and our culture, our art. Eco Theatre Carnival celebrates performances, theatre, dance, music, visual art, and all of those things. So, but of course, you'll be right to say that one does not just jump at it. So, if it takes you 20 years to start something like Eco Theatre Carnival, it means that you've spent time. One was not in a hurry to just jump at something. So, even if you're a dunce, after 20 solid years of doing the same thing, there'll be some level of expertise in what you're doing. So, I can say that there's an unconscious influence by seeing how people, the precursors of this profession have been able to put stuff together. And we thought that, listen, there's what they call sustainable development. All of these activities, all of these efforts must be sustained. And who are the people to sustain it? The young ones who are taking it over. I think LABAF has got the focus. I think the problem of LABAF is where LABAF is happening. If LABAF was, say, for instance, happening in an organized, structured society, say, go to South Africa, go to Burkina Faso, I don't want to talk about Europe or America. They already have the content, so it's just for the structure to be available, and then we have something going. Who says this entire building, if you look behind you, there's this huge building, it can't be one hotel where young people, students, different people will be lodged because they've come for a book festival. A book and art festival. Who says that can happen? But the structures have to be there. They need more support, they need more funding and everything. And of course, when they get those fundings, we are there to come and collect from them to run our things too. The future of LABAF is, you see, if you had asked me this question in a different climate, not Nigeria, I would have said, oh, the future is bright and all of those things. But because it's Nigeria, sometimes, no matter how brilliant the idea may be, they may kill it. Also, Nigeria also nurtures beautiful ideas. But it's the spirit behind the festival that I'm talking about. I think they don't know how to say no. They don't know how to give up. So I go back to my first response to that the future of LABAF is going to be is very, very, very bright. It's going to be very, very big. It's going to be one of the biggest book festivals in Africa. Mark my words.